Welcome, everyone, and welcome to Off the Cuff, the eviCore Healthcare Podcast. And today, we're talking high tech. I mean, really high tech. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing, statistical modeling, oh my. So all of these things are way above my pay grade, so we've got two special guests today from eviCore. We've got Sid Govindan, a radiologist and director of product development for eviCore. And then John Young, who is our SVP of everything high tech. Welcome, guys.
Welcome. Thanks.
All right. So first question today is, did you guys wear deodorant? I'm serious.
Yeah. I can't tell if Sid is, but I know I am.
Yeah. So I heard that sales of deodorant have plummeted since the pandemic. So if you look at the store shelves, they're stocked and they're great deals on deodorant. So I suggest that you load up now, but do wear deodorant because it's kind of smelling a little funky in here. So I'm not sure which one of you it is, but I'd appreciate it. So yeah, deodorant and razor blades. That one's kind of understanding. What went way up is ice cream, which is not surprising, and mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise is really surprising.
What's that about?
Not my household.
What's that about? Mayonnaise. I mean, I do live in the South where, mayonnaise is already kind of it's a food group, but yeah, that one was kind of surprising.
If you haven't been convinced to wear a mask, the decrease in sale of deodorant could.
that's how we'll get people to wear a mask.
There you go.
That's right.
So, guys, we're when we look at our, traditional sort of RBM model, one of the things that stands out is the administrative burden that providers, always bring up, rightly so, complain about, associations and societies, medical societies always, bring them up, as well. The American Medical Association, as you all know, came out several years ago with sort of almost a manifesto with, I think, like 21 points that needed to be addressed as far as the RBM industry was concerned. And the thing that amazed me when I saw that let's call it manifesto was that I was amazed because eviCore was already thinking about or already doing a whole lot of those things, and so. When I go out to providers' offices, one of the things that we notice this sort of administrative burden, and we try to help them try to become more efficient, try to make sure that they understand the guidelines, what's necessary, and all that. But I think the thing that I think has been important, is that one, as a company, we have now acknowledged this issue of this administrative burden. And now we have, we're sort of putting our money where our mouth is, right? And trying to start to do something about that. So maybe we could start, John, you could tell us a little bit about, where we are with that and what we're doing.
Yeah, I think, it's a great point, Dr. Torelli, to focus on, what's going on within the industry, and I guess every manifesto has to have 21 points or else nobody really reads it or listens to it. But, we've been on this journey for a while, as you mentioned. I mean, it started, back a long time, 5 to 7 years ago, just trying to look at current technology and how we could deploy those to improve, the way that providers and clinicians were interacting with eviCore to take that burden away. So if you think about, the Wayback Machine 7 years ago, the majority of prior authorizations were pretty heavy on the phone. Still a lot of faxes going on from many providers across the country. And we started working on portals. Portals were the big technology of the day. And how do we get folks to, move away from phone fax to being able to initiate prior authorizations and to interact with eviCore in a more dynamic, technical way versus, the manual effort around the phone and fax. We've had really, really strong success with that. I mean, if you look at our volumes, we've replaced a lot of that intake from phones with our portal. There's light automation with the portal, but there's also still heavy manual with the process of going through it. So a number of years ago, we merged and started working with a company called Cupid Health to bring artificial intelligence, machine learning, and natural language processing into eviCore so that we could continue to extend the value of this automation through the portals. And we've had really strong success in accelerating the turnaround of case, the throughput of cases, and starting to alleviate that burden on providers. It's been a long journey through a number of different technologies. And I think today we'll kind of highlight a few of those and talk about, where we are today and where we're going in the future.
So could you give us a little bit of a feel for, what this means? So today, when we go to, talk to a provider, there's the, these pre-certification sort of person or team that, starts a case. They can start the case either on the phone or preferably on the web. They then, go through that sort of statistical modeling, and then they get to a pathway, a clinical pathway, and they answer those questions. And if they don't get that sort of part, they go to it goes to a nurse for review, and then eventually to a physician. So how does this change that?
Yeah, I'm worn out just hearing you kind of walk through that process.
I know.
So
it's a lot, right?
Imagine how it feels, when you have a team of people doing that every day.
Yeah.
Well, the goal is to get to where, that process you just described, a clinician or a provider organization and their team that's focused on pre-cert and prior auth, they have to go through that for every single case. And our goal is to, where we can, based on that initial information coming to us, try to get out of the way, as much as possible in what we're calling touchless prior authorization, so that the provider has an order, they have a schedule, and basically, if it's an appropriate case, they never have to go through that process you described. They basically submit their schedule and order. It comes automatically to eviCore via an EMR connection, and we're able to run it through our processes. And if it is appropriate procedure, they get the authorization right back in their EMR. If it's not, then we want to be able to give guidance and to be able to review the case and to accelerate that process as well by being able to automate the clinical information that would need to come to us, so that we really are taking that load and burden off of the provider for having to constantly go back into their systems or go back to talk to the provider that placed the order and get more information and then manually submit that to us to have it all be as automated as much as possible. I don't know, Sid, if you want to build on that around the current environment and what the future looks like.
Yeah, sure. So one of the kind of key tenets when we look at product development is this idea of fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And that is really something that, being at eviCore, gives us the opportunity to do that, given how much eviCore interacts with payers and how it interacts with providers. And so throughout the course of us really understanding what the problem is, we're able to identify what are the critical pieces that we need to address in order to actually provide value. And this is where our very iterative approach, very experimental approach, in order to be innovative and be able to get feedback in a timely way, so we can start to address what is an extremely complex problem of, one, having to expedite or even remove the need for prior authorization, but being able to balance it against what is actually appropriate utilization. And so one of the areas that we found to be very appropriate in terms of being able to address this is the artificial intelligence piece that was mentioned, and that was kind of the core technology that Cupid Health has. And through our various kinds of experimentation, we were able to determine that AI, specifically, we're talking about machine learning for this approach, was able to at least replace the current approval percentages that were historically achieved with surveys in the radiology, cardiology, advanced imaging space. And that insight then allowed us to really expand how we can approach prior authorization by saying, hey, there's a substantial percentage of cases that without someone manually going in and filling out this survey, but instead being connected with the EHR or even within the existing portal workflow, that we can use our artificial intelligence to expedite this processing and in fact remove this processing and any interaction with the case for a very high percentage of those cases.
You've been listening to Off the Cuff. We're going to continue our conversation next time with Dr. Sid Govindan and John Young.